welcome to Gear Up with BigIron.
If we ever have your sale, we're going to work as hard as we can to make sure it's the best sale we ever had.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Mark Stock, and welcome to Gear Up with BigIron. And this is our podcast. Our special guest and co-founder of BigIron is Ron Stock.
Hi, Mark.
Today. Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Good. Are you hanging around today? Doing good?
I'm doing really good. You know, I woke up, had a good night's sleep, and I'm positive. I'm optimistic about the day.
Well, hey, last podcast we talked about the history and kind of the startup of Stock Realty and Auction Company, which evolved in the first 25 years of the auction space before BI, before internet. BigIron, BigIron started.
You had me with that one. BI. Yeah. I've heard of AI.
Yeah.
BI.
BI.
That's a brand new one.
That's
very good.
The livestock division's got a BI thing.
BI, branding iron.
Yeah, that's kind of like that too.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, so we want to talk a little bit this time about how the internet had changed the face of Stock Realty and Auction Company, how it changed the trajectory of the way the company started to do business. And I'll lead off with back in the 90s, late 90s, we were having quite a number of auctions and getting a pretty big footprint. And we had a cousin, Michelle Stock, who married Brian Schultz. And Brian Schultz was kind of a computer guy, and he approached us one day when we were in the Bedrock building, and he said, guys, I can write some software where you guys can broadcast these auctions over the internet. This was in 1998, I believe.
I remember he was selling his vinyl wares, his vinyl fencing and vinyl products fencing, online. Yeah. But he was one of the first person I remember selling online.
Yeah, but he was a internet. Can I say nerd without offending anybody? Because that's what he liked. He liked to do that. Okay, and I said, Brian, how in the hell will that ever work? Because we had dial-up at our house. Okay, and if you were on the phone with somebody, you couldn't dial up, so you had to hang up, and then you get on the internet through Megavision. It took you 15 minutes to download a picture. And for you young listeners out there, you have no idea how.
Don't tell me your internet's slow. Don't tell me.
The internet was 5 minutes to download a picture that was real granulated. And when somebody would call you in the middle of the download, it would stop and it would have to start all over again. And we're going, oh my God, this is ridiculous. We had fax machines. You know what a fax machine is, Ron?
I start using them now. You should use your fax machine to wiring instructions. You should not send them over the internet. Fax machines are coming back.
Why, is TikTok
Bankers are using them.
Is TikTok going to get the internet?
I don't know about TikTok, but banks are using fax machines now to do send wiring instructions. Mm-hmm. It's back.
It's back. The fax is back.
Fax is back.
Hey, let's tag that, line that. Maybe we'll get a stool that says the fax is back.
Don't send your wiring instructions over the internet.
Okay, there we go. Do it some encrypted code. But anyway, so Brian said he wanted to write this program, and he says, I'll just charge a % for the people that are going to use it. I said, Brian, with dial-up as slow as it is, it will never, ever work. Now, unfortunately, Brian, a hell of a nice guy, had a young child and 2 young twins, gets killed in a car accident. Horrible, horrible
tragedy.
Deal. It was a shocker. And, a funeral with so many people because everybody liked him so much. 6 months later, I kept thinking about what he was saying. So just for fun, I wrote letters to several universities, to the computer engineering programs, and said, does anybody want to take on a project of writing some software that you can broadcast over the internet, an auction going on in real time? And we had a couple of responses. And one of them was from a group of guys in Omaha, Nebraska. And they said, would you come and meet us because we want to talk about this letter we received? And I said, great. So myself and John Sorensen, we went to Omaha and we had a sit down and we talked about what our vision was. And they said, we think we can take this on. We got some money from the Kiewit Foundation, $50,000 to develop something like this. And I went, sounds good to me. So for a period of about a year, maybe a year and a half,
we were their guinea pig.
we went back and forth because they wanted my perspective on how this thing would work for our application. And eventually, this program come into play, and we used the internet in real time in 2001 on an Omaha Public Power District sale. And I remember buying 2 big spools of phone cable. They were 1,000 feet rolls, and we bought 2 of them. And I had these 2 football player kids. Their job was to roll out the cable, plug it into a wall jack, and plug it into the laptop that was in our topper, so we could be broadcasting this auction over the internet. And we had one of the technical people there running the computer. Every time a bid was received, they would, increment the bid so the people watching could see where the bid was, and they could click the bid button if they so choose. And then when we went to because in Omaha Public Power District, they had 4 or 5 different lines, long lines of big trucks and machinery. We'd get to the one line. That's when we'd have to unplug the spool of phone cable, and the other one was laid out in the other roll, and then we'd plug that back in, and then we'd go down that line again. So we'd have to wait a minute to reconnect. And then the college kids, these football players, they'd roll up the other roll, they'd take it to the third roll, and they would unroll it again. And we did that back and forth till we had it all done, all for, unbelievably, the 3 people that were watching. 2 of them were the computer engineers team, and one was a guy from Blair, Nebraska. And I called him. I said, "How'd you think that thing worked?" He says, "I'm kind of a computer nerd, so I just thought it worked pretty slick." That was the first time. And then shortly thereafter, Ronstock, they invented an air card that you actually plugged in that worked off a cell tower. That was like months. That was just months after we were using this phone cable. So that was a huge change. So we said, now we can use this on remote sites as long as there was a cell tower for close. And then we started buying the Wilson boosters. I mean, this was a pretty heavy technology investment that we were putting forth all the time. And we had these boosters inside the sound pickup that we were calling the numbers out of, and that would boost the signal so we could get enough of a signal from the air tower to the air card so the public could watch. And all of a sudden we're having 30 people watching. I mean, just a few short months later, there's 30 people watching. Then there's 60 people watching. And then there's 100 people watching 1 year into this. So it grew pretty rapid. And the crowd was always, because these were open outcry sales. Hey, here's 75, 100, doing this stuff like that. But the crowd, when we say the internet, we got the internet joining us online, and the crowd was always so PO'd that, what the hell do you mean you got these? It's cold out here. It's hot out here. I said, well, they're in the comfort of their own environment.
Internet's here to stay, we used to say. Internet's here to stay. I remember saying that phrase.
So the internet would be bidding and buying and whatever, and it was growing. And then this was the early 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003. Everything was working right along. We eventually switched from the one provider that I helped develop into another provider that we also helped that company develop because they were looking for some, good, solid advice. And then in 2008, we're fast forwarding now.
Yep.
From 2008, we're in 2008, ladies and gentlemen, Stock Auction Company was doing 3.5 auctions a week on average from the 1st of November to the 1st of May. God bless Erica Wirtz for doing all that advertising.
I remember thinking in arrears that if we had launched our first farm sale, in 2002, 2003, there were only 10% of the farmers online. And by 2008, ethanol had kicked in, the machinery was worth more. And
That's why it worked.
There was only 20%. There was only 20% of the farmers that were not online. So I really believe that if BigIron had launched, the BigIron's first farm auction had launched in 2002, it would have been one of those ideas that failed. Everybody out there in listening land, we've all had ideas and tried them and they failed. It would have been something we tried in 2002. It wouldn't have worked very good. We'd have put it back in the closet and we would still be selling traditional sales and probably wouldn't be here anymore.
Well,
so luck and timing. I always say luck and timing is the key to everything. I recently read a book on the most successful businesses in America, and all the CEOs, top 10, said they had one thing in common. The author said they all attributed their success to luck and timing. And that's really broad, but I'm telling you, timing has a lot to do with it. So I remember our first sale, if I could talk about that sale we had west of St. Ed. We had a guy who is, I call him a true American. He never wanted people on his place. He had called us up like 3 years earlier and said, I would like you guys to show up and buy my cows. I got 8 cows. I want $425 a piece for them. You know I don't like people on my place. So we showed up, bought his cows, brought them back, and he called us up 5 years later, about 2008, 2009, and he says, guys, I'm selling you all my machinery. I don't want people on my place. So we went over there and we says to him, we said, Don, I'll tell you what, we got this thing. We're looking for somebody to do an online-only auction called BigIron. And I said, I don't think there'll be a lot of people here on your place. And he said, I don't want nobody on my place. I says, well, I'll move the stuff across the road. And he goes, that guy don't like me. I go, he likes me. I said, I got to get along with everybody. I'm in the auction business. So we moved everything across the road. Mark and Erica did the advertising for the sale. I don't know, Erica, do you remember that first sale? And we did that sale, and the guy wanted us to buy his machinery. We explained to him we don't buy machinery. He wanted $95,000. Smart guy. His machinery was worth about $100. He says, I know you guys got to make a little money. He had 25 pieces. So we moved it across the road, advertised it extra, and had some people register, had all the help in the office out to register for the sale for the people that showed up. The thing that sticks in my mind, there was very few people showed up to kick the tires. We didn't hardly register anybody there. They all did it online. And the sale totaled $127,000. And I remember on the way home, I remember the hair, you and I riding back in St. Ed, and I remember the hair in the back of my neck going up. And I remember thinking, holy crap, this is going to work. You know, that was my epiphany, that this whole thing's going to change pretty damn quick.
Well, before that happened, let's talk about how it all started. Because in 2008, we were doing all these auctions, and then ethanol got introduced. And the ag economy went from selling your corn from $1.60 a bushel to $3.60 a bushel. And all of the retirement sales that we were having, because they were just tired of grinding it out, they started making money, so they wanted to keep farming for a couple more years. So our 3.5 auctions a week went down to 3.5 auctions a month in 2000, in the last of 2008. And the people that wanted to sell stuff were calling us up saying, hey, you got Freddie's estate sale. Can I bring my disc and my planter over there because I got a new planter and a new disc? We said, we really don't want to turn that into that consignment sale because the seller, the estate sale doesn't want to have that. And they said, well, when are you going to have a sale in the area? Put together some sort of an auction. I said, well, you need to have at least $1 million worth of stuff. Otherwise, we can't afford the advertising and all the people and personnel for checking it in, gate checking, all that stuff. And me and Ron just thought about, well, why don't we just try this timed only thing that we always had been kicking around in the back of our head. And we said, all right. We tried it. February of 2009 was the first sale we had, where we had 21 pieces of machinery just from these people that had a few odds and end items. It was 21 items, but 890 people registered for that sale, which was unbelievable. And now remember, farmers had money. So they were willing to take a chance in buying something without touching it, without rubbing up against it, without physically driving out to look at it before it sold. So they were gambling. They were taking a shot. They
Luck
had
and
money.
timing.
Luck and timing. So when that sale first went on, we had all those people registered. We put a couple ads in a few local papers, and we picked a few towns. One was Stanton, Nebraska. One was Wakefield, Nebraska. One was Wayne, Nebraska, and we started in St. Ed in our hometown. And we said, if you want to learn how to bid or how to sell or buy on the internet, come to this free informational meeting. St. Ed, Nebraska, of course, that's where we're from. We had the Legion building, and we didn't think, maybe 10, 20 people show up. It was standing room only. Lonnie course was to put together the presentation for the 10 people that we thought were going to be there. And here comes these large groups of people, all wanting to know how it works. And we were doing a step-by-step instruction on how the website worked, how you register, put your name, your address. A lot of people, they didn't want to do that because they didn't want the IRS. They didn't want the IRS invading their personal space. And I remember the question that we would ask when we started after the first one. We'd say, okay, how many people in here have a computer? Because we wanted to get the idea of what type of group
Audience.
of people were we going to be training? Did we have to start from square one? Did we have to whatever? So we'd say, how many people in the room have a computer? I remember in Wayne, Nebraska, there was like 25 people in there. Most of them were couples, and the guys would not raise their hand, but the wives would. So I'd look at the guy and I said, "You don't have a computer?" He goes, "No, I don't have a computer, but the wife does." I said, "Oh, okay. So do you know how to use a computer?" He goes, "No, I don't know how to use a computer, but the wife does." So I knew right then and there we had to be talking to the wives.
Right on.
But they were asking good questions about how it all worked, and these rooms were full. And then so we said, well, let's try another sale. So 1 month later, we did another one of these online auctions. The first one, remember, was 21 pieces. The second one was 64. We did them every month. And the third sale was over 200. And that's when we said, there's enough people calling us. We need to get some more reps to go out to take all these pictures. Let's try them every 2 weeks. And that's when Mr. Bob called us up and said, "You guys, I heard about this." Don. Yeah. I heard about this.
Bob is his brother, though. You're right.
Yeah, that's right. So I want to sell that. There's a bunch of them. It's a big family.
Don't make them mad. You big family.
Anyway, so we had that sale for him, and we were shocked because we brought our trailer out. I don't even remember if Erica was on site. We were thinking we're going to have to register a lot of people. I think 3 people walked through that stuff the morning of the sale. Now, before that, there was traffic.
Sure.
There was people driving out to look at this stuff.
And I remember pasture.
I remember he had a tractor. It was a 4-wheel drive tractor, an early international, like a
48.
4386 or something.
4386, yeah.
Something like that. And well, the shock for me on that sale was the co-bidder was from Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it brought $11,700, and of course Don was just unbelievably satisfied. His neighbor 2 miles away buys it. Fast forward, that neighbor passes away a year and a half later. We didn't do the sale; it was an open outcry sale. That same tractor that brought what it did on Don's sale sold for less than $7,000 because they didn't have it broadcasted over the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just noticing that this internet had such a wide reach of people, and people weren't scared to give it a try.
So we had the sales back in that time. We definitely were doing more traditional sales than we were doing our monthly online auction. And people would ask me, "Ron, should I do my sale online or should I do my sale traditional auction?" I go, it all ends up at that time at the same dollars. And I put my finger like this, and I used this. I said, on your traditional sale, there'll be highs where people look at each other and they're mad and they'll overpay it. There'll be really bad lows, a lot of waves, but you'll end up at the same. On the internet auction, they're more educated buyers. The waves are going to be smaller, like this. Highs and lows will be less predominant, end up the same dollars. Well, it only took a couple years where studying the market, I couldn't say that anymore. I'd say, on your traditional auction, you're going to have highs and lows, and it's going to end up here. On your internet auction, there's more audience. You're going to get at least 10% more.
An example of that is when we had a sale in Blue Hill, Nebraska. A gentleman that owned the grain elevator passed away, and his daughter was the executor, and she called and said, "Hey, come and..." My dad was a visionary. He invented a lot of things. This internet thing has just got my attention, and in honor of my dad, I want you guys to sell all his stuff on the internet. That's what I want my dad's legacy to be, because he was such a forward thinker. I said, "Yeah, I'll meet you there." I went to his Quonset building. He had a 1468, the V8. And
wish I had one.
Yeah, and he had a whole bunch of other smaller items, tractors, and he had a lot of fencing supplies. And I remember he had 3 hand dig postal diggers. They were just like new, and we were going to have
just a manual postal.
Yeah, manual postal diggers. Everybody's got a blister from a postal digger. If you don't, come over to my house. I'll let you use one. Okay? In fact, I got some fence posts that need to be installed next weekend. Anybody wants to respond to this podcast, I'm looking for a few good men and women to put in some posts. Let's do it. And the staples, you can even drive the staples in with a staple. I got a trick.
No.
The staple pliers has 2 little grooves in them. You can put the staple in that so you don't nail your thumb every time you hit it with a hammer.
Nice.
I'm 57 years old. I just learned that a couple weeks ago.
In the old fence puller.
The old fence, the fence and pliers.
On
the fence and pliers, the fence and pliers has 2 little holes in it
I
that you put
them.
the staples into.
I've never used it for that.
To pound the post hole, to pound the staples in the post. It is unbelievable, and I don't have any blisters now because of whatever. So come on over.
Never too old to learn.
New. But anyway, so this seller had a bunch of fencing supplies, new rolls of barbed wire, and these postal diggers. We were having an open outcry sale by Clark's, Nebraska. a couple days before this scheduled online sale, because
The
all these
DOLA.
online sales were on a Wednesday. But this was we were standing on the rack, and they had 3 posthole diggers on this open outcry sale that were just like new. And we're holding up these posthole diggers, and I had the microphone. I said, let's sell them choice, because I knew we were selling 3 of them the other sale. And they brought $10 or $12 a piece, a total of, $35, maybe $40 total. And on the sale that we were selling online, they brought $170 when we sold all 3 of them together in one pallet, one bid. And
So 170 versus
$40.
Yep.
Was the shocker to me.
that's an epiphany on a post hole digger.
Because people were at home doing their research by what that costs. Where you're on site, you're only able to get who's there. When you're on the internet, you're getting everywhere. And we've recognized the same thing. We've been doing the Balin auctions, Balin Manufacturing, Columbus, Nebraska, for close to 30 years. And it took us a long time to convince them to try just to put a few of the items online. Because a typical Balin sale would, when we had microphones in our hand and 2 auction rings running, we might total a couple $100,000. Well, now they sell every week
On BigIron.
on BigIron, and before they just did 3 auctions a year, and if you do a couple 100,000 times 3, that's 600. Now their sales are getting close to $2 million, and they're actually selling less stuff because a gate now is bringing within a few dollars of what you can buy it at a Tractor Supply.
They like it better too because the loadout.
And it's got a scratch and a dent.
The
on it, Ron
loadout
Stock.
spread out over 30 days.
It's got a scratch and a dent, and
Yes.
the paint's falling off. But there's people that are in their office, and you don't do this, Ron. You don't. When you're working, you're not.
I'm not a smoker.
You're not a smoker?
No.
You're not watching some auction somewhere when you're working, or you're not on, what is that, FaceTime? Facebook? What is that called, that thing? Face something?
I'm easily distracted. So next question, please.
No, but anyway, while people are at work, they're participating in these online auctions, and they're buying stuff. They're in the dentist chair. They're at their accountant's office. They are bidding on their phones. I think it's over 60-some% or 70%. I got to get the statisticians out here that keep updating us, that are bidding online from a mobile device.
Online early at BigIron, a neighbor called me, and he said, thank you for that BigIron. He goes, I was going to drive out to Gothenburg, Nebraska to watch this grain cart sell. And he goes, I would have done it 2 years ago on your traditional sale, but that grain cart sold for way more than I was willing to pay. I was in line unloading. I got 2 loads of grain in because of the internet. I'm so dang glad I didn't drive all the way out there. Thank you for saving my day.
Well, that's the thing. People ask me all the time, back in the day, but now we're talking in the early teens, what's the difference between the internet and a traditional sale? Early on, I said, pie. And they, what do you mean pie? I said, we don't have a lunch stand on the internet sale, so you can't get a piece of pie. And they'd go, damn. But other than that, it's the same. And then as your example was before, we noticed pretty quickly that the dollars were always higher over the internet. And we didn't want anybody else to know that, so we kept our cards close to our chest, right? Mm-hmm. And a big change in the game was when COVID happened, right? COVID shows up, and it's a terrible thing in our history. But, we lived through it, and we empathize with all those people that lost somebody. And we lost some good friends, too, through that horrible time in our history. But explain COVID, Ron Stock, and how that changed the internet.
Well, going back just a little bit before that, we had to figure out what we were going to call our traditional auctions, because still the industry calls them live auctions. So we said the live auction is the BigIron. It's live, happening in real live time. Live auction is the one out on the farm. So I think we're the only ones that use this word. Traditional is an on-site open outcry auction.
Hey, right there.
And BigIron is our online auction platform. But to this day, I'll hear people say, well, I thought I'd just do a live auction. And I'm like, so you want to put it on BigIron? No, I want to do a live auction. Well, that's a traditional auction, the old way of doing it. We recently have a guy in Wheeler County who wanted to do a traditional sale. And when we explained to him the difference, it was a light going off that he needs to put it on BigIron. But COVID, there'd be a group of people. COVID helped us with registrations. Registrations went up, if you recall, 40%.
They didn't have any other option.
Over
All the other
40%.
traditional sales weren't happening.
But they go to the people at the coffee shop. Every coffee shop in America is the same, as you know. There's 6 guys, sometimes 8 guys show up. 2 of them are the know-it-alls. One of them is a quiet guy with all the money. They say he's got all the money. The 2 guys that are BSers, they're real people persons. The other guys are just listeners. And they go in the coffee shop, and then 1 or 2 of those guys would be a self-proclaimed internet expert. So he'd have his phone. So he'd show up at the 2019.
Did he have a flip phone or a smartphone?
2019, he'd show up. Some of the guys in the coffee shop, really good, they'd bring their iPad.
Ooh.
And they say, look what this sold for. So them other 6 guys that weren't online, they were really entertained by that guy. So then all of a sudden, COVID, they couldn't go to the C-store. So they say, hey, Martha. Yes, Harold. I need to get online because I can't talk to Bruce anymore because damn COVID. Can you get me on that BigIron? I want to see, because when they talk on the phone, they wanted to talk. So these 75-year-old guys were getting registered on BigIron, and now they're instantly a computer expert. It's like, yeah, I'm on BigIron all the time. And you talk to the wife, and the wife says, that guy's on a computer all the time on BigIron, just scrolling through. When he's done scrolling through, he'll look at an old sale, look at a new sale. So COVID helped us tremendously.
That's when we started the COVID support club for all the women out there, because they couldn't have a conversation with their husband because, the BigIron was now the shoe shopping for men.
Right. I think some of the women give us a thank you. Give him something to do. So then COVID also forced every traditional auctioneer into going to Walmart and buying an auctioneer in a box. And we've seen that happen the last few years. The auctioneers that go auctioneer in a box, they come home, they put it in their computer and say, I'm an internet auctioneer. They put their stuff online to their 300 or 400 registered bidders.
Do they have that many?
I don't know. And then they come back to us now and say, guys, we tried it. We tried internet in a box, auction, Walmart in a box, internet in a box, and it didn't work out very good for us, so we're back. So the key is the registered bidders. Right now I used to have a deal in my office. You've seen it. You've all seen it, but it's got a picture of the Husker Stadium that Henry Nuxel painted all the painstakingly painted all the people yellow. And so just a short time ago, when we had 80,000 registered bidders, I would say selling your equipment on BigIron is like driving it through Memorial Stadium with mostly men, some women, no children, who buy machinery. So when you take your tractor and drive it in this side and drive it real slow, and there's an announcer saying, hey, he's at the 10, he's at the 5, touchdown. When that tractor goes out the end, it is full retail. Fast forward now with our current registered bidders, you're driving your tractor through 12 Memorial Stadiums. So it drives
Full
through
of
this
people.
one full of men, some women, no children, that buy machinery. So you go through the first one, it's already at a fair market price. Then just to make sure you're not getting cheated out of Mr. Seller, you drive it through 11 more Memorial Stadiums. When it comes out the other side, you're so damn happy with the price. You had plenty of people look at it. So, even if it sold for less than what you're hoping for, it's like you had 12 freaking Memorial Stadiums bidding on your tractors. And so that's where we got ahead of the game. And I remember us talking about it, saying, okay, this internet's coming. Everybody's going to have it. And it's going to be like, right now it's a little buzz, like zzz, 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 zzz. But there's going to be a time mark stock when that thing is so loud, and COVID did it. Auctioneer in a box. Zzz. I mean, you go out there in the public and you can look any different direction and find an online auctioneer now. Go to Walmart, pick up the program. It's not hard, but you've got to have the buyer base. And so that was our claim to fame. Push it as hard as we could, because I knew the competition was coming. You knew the competition was coming. And all I wanted to do, my dream was, when you think about selling something, we wanted to be one of the top 3 names you thought of. There's always going to be competition. Competition's good. Wanted to be top 3 names. And so I'm awful happy that we can provide our buyers and our sellers that service.
Well, there's a lot of people that make up this organization, and it's not just one silver bullet. There's a wide variety of things, and our company has a lot of experts. And at the end of the day, that equipment's going to sell for the highest price of anything that's out there, and you're going to net more total dollars. and that's what's important. We can't get hung up on a fee structure. You just have to focus on what the bottom line is going to be when it's all done. And that's the way that's what you got to do at farming. Farming, if you don't know what your input costs are, if you don't know what your seed corn and your fertilizer and your chemicals, and if you don't know what that cost of production is, and if you don't know where you need to start selling so you know what your bottom line is, you're just a pig in a poke, And we look at business in the auction business just like we did when we were farming. We have to know where the bottom line is going to be for our customers because they have to have the best return, and that's what we're after. That's what we focus on, the best return for their dollars.
Yeah, there's many stories about some companies in any facet of the United States doing business for less, and they just don't survive. So how is that good for our customers if we don't survive upturns and downturns? So, we're being fiscally responsible and keeping the rates as low as we can. But it is exciting when someone calls you and they tried another auction company and sold their single axle grain truck. They had it advertised, real story. They had it advertised in Omaha World Herald and papers, asking $6,000 for it. They knew how much those papers cost. They tried an online auction company that was an auctioneer in a box at Walmart and no-sailed it for like $6,000, and they put it on BigIron, brings $11,500. I mean, we got stories like that all across the board. But I don't want to tell people that you're going to get full retail for every piece. There's going to be a cheap piece once in a while, and that's what keeps it going.
All right, well, the internet has changed the auction profession, not only in the United States but across the world. And, a real quick story. Some people said, where did BigIron come from? And we thought and dug and looked for a long time on the name of what our internet company was going to be. And I remember having one of those whiteboards in the office, and we had how many of them? 50 of them. We'd write down. We'd have to go trying to search and find one that was available. And I had a friend of mine call me up and says, hey, what did you ever think about for BigIron? We got online and we looked for BigIron, and a guy in Texas had the domain name, and we negotiated out the purchase of BigIron. And but it took every bit of 8 months before we found the words BigIron. And there's no rhyme or reason to it and we didn't know we were going to change the company name from Stock Realty and Auction Company to BigIron. We didn't know, but it took off so fast. It's truly a garage success story that started out in 1984, working hard in the space, trying to understand the profession, dealing with people, buyers and sellers, providing good customer service, relationships over time, grew to referrals over time, grew to business modeling and planning over time. That turned us into a time period when ethanol actually invented BigIron for us, because without farmers making money, we would have never thought of it, because our auction business declined. And if they say when your business has a hill in front of you, you got to figure out how to climb over the hill. Well, we tried the internet thing, and by the grace of God and a lot of good friends, we got lucky because it gained some traction. But it gained traction because we understood the business. We understood the importance of being honest and integrity, and we understood that you have to provide real good descriptions, and the unreserved is what made it for us.
And we were auctioneers.
Yeah, we were auctioneers.
The auctioneer and the box guys that start up, they're not auctioneers, and you got to understand the business to make it successful, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. So that's how BigIron evolved over time, and today with close to a million registered users, we're on a trajectory to get there sooner than later, and the largest viewing audience on a weekly basis. As you had mentioned, the football stadiums are full every time we have a sale. That's been not something that we can put Ron and Mark's name behind. It's all the people that we've done business with, and all the people that we have worked with, and all the people that have been here have helped us build. Well, I remember our Monday morning meetings. We'd get around a round table and we'd talk for hours on what worked, what didn't work. And we're still doing that today.
Safety meetings, we call them.
Yeah, safety meetings, prayer meetings, whatever.
But I will say that we don't take BigIron for granted. I mean, we are at the helm as hard as we've ever been, and we are making sure that our next sale isn't our last sale, and there's no sign of that. It looks like it's really strong going forward, we are really not. If we ever have your sale, we're not taking it for granted. We're going to work as hard as we can to make sure it's the best sale we ever had.
So we're geared up, and that's our sign off right there. We'll pay attention to the next week's episode of Gear Up, brought to you by Big Iron. We want to thank you for listening. Have a great week.
Thanks.